This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. Since 2010, we've been broadcasting sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, we spotlight diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world. I invite you to listen and change how you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where you will learn about bias and equality. We are exploring social justice and how it impacts mental health. My guest today is Dr. Joanne Finkelstein. She is a Harvard and Northwestern trained clinical psychologist who integrates bias, social justice, and mental health in her private practice. She's been featured in major outlets like the New York Times, Harvard Business Review, and CNN. She also contributes to Psychology Today. Dr. Finkelstein is active in women's rights. She has served on the Chicago Now board and helped organize the Chicago Women's March. She is also the author of Sexism and Sensibility, Raising Empowered, Resilient Girls in the Modern World. Dr. Finkelstein, I am so happy that you're here. I am excited to have this conversation with you because as much as things have changed, some things haven't.
That's right. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Let's talk about the generational transmission of sexism, because this is deep, right? This isn't just a current problem. It's a perpetual one.
Yeah, great question. We pass down so much to our kids, right? Traits, behaviors, trauma, both genetically and in our conscious and unconscious behaviors, everyday behaviors. And so the book focuses mostly on the latter, right? The conscious and unconscious ways that we treat our kids or relate to them. And, I have no doubt that the trauma of being a girl is just being treated differently, being treated less than, being treated as not as smart, also sort of gets passed down epigenetically, right? And it doesn't have to be a major trauma like sexual assault. It's sort of the everyday stuff that I was talking about, like the being interrupted all the time and being treated differently.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, but my point was that I was going to talk about the proverbial I'm sorry. As women, it seems like many of us find the need to constantly apologize for our attitudes and our opinions and our actions.
We do. We're sort of brought up to believe that other people's feelings and other people's comfort is more important than our own.
Yeah.
And so we are so focused on making people happy, right? And as girls, I see that as the antecedent of the emotional labor that women take on, right? Yeah. So girls, they have so much trouble. I mean, relationships are the lifeblood of their lives, and that's a wonderful thing. And we also really emphasize it, which makes it hard to sort of be direct in relationships and to get angry. And so we do a lot of swallowing our voices, a lot of saying, I'm sorry if we sense that we've hurt somebody. Then they grow up and they find that they're taking on everybody, they're taking the emotional temperature of everybody in the room and in the family, and managing it at the expense of their own.
Let me ask you a question about the current political climate in the United States, because there's been a tremendous plot twist or sea change here, where we now have a woman who is running for president again. Somebody, whether you like her or not, is extremely well qualified for the job.
And yet she's DEI hire.
Yes, and yet she is a DEI hire. And at first I found that really irritating. And then I was thinking about it and I thought, well, what if you lean into that? What if you actually say that, yeah, now we're at a place where we do have some equity and inclusion, and that's spot on, that we take the very thing that people are disparaging her with and saying, no, you're 100% right. And it's about time.
You know what? That's genius. It really is, because a DEI hire has when they say it in a pejorative way, it has the ring as if she's not qualified.
Yes.
But DEI hires, they're qualified. Just because you're taking an extra quality into account doesn't mean that they don't have the other qualifications, right? Just because you're elevating that a little bit, that extra quality. I'm thinking about boys that complain that they're making engineering programs 50-50 and that they're taking spots away from more qualified candidates. And it's like, no, they might be very good at STEM subjects, but they are getting this one extra leg up because of years and years and years of unfairness.
Well, everybody deserves a seat at the table. I mean, I think that that's the point of DEI. And I think that the person who is running for president, because she is a woman of color, doesn't give her an advantage because she is a well-educated, well-prepared human being that can do the job, that happens to have these other attributes, is really the issue.
And frankly, being a woman of color gives her less of an advantage, right?
Right. Exactly. So it's all fuzzy logic, which is the point about how sexism, I think, is weaponized in society today. It's like you can't have it both ways, right? Either it's the person and the job they're capable of doing or not doing, but it has nothing to do with their gender or their sexuality or their preferences. Mm-hmm. Do you have the muscle or do you not have the muscle?
And certainly this one is proved in many ways. She's educated and she's worked hard to get where she's at, despite what.
Yes. Taken no guff. And I appreciate that. And I think in terms of how we support the girls and the women in our lives, to say, everything is possible and that you have a voice and that your opinion matters. And how do we combat those microaggressions that you and I were talking about to support the women and girls around us?
Yeah.
The DEI comments, the snark.
Yeah, it's such a good example, right? Of how sort of subtly or not so subtly put girls and women down. Like they don't have enough of what it takes to actually be in positions of power. And we're telling them that from the time they're very young, right? Yeah. They're just like, if they're growing up in a house with men, they are automatically being interrupted more. That's just a fact. It's just what the research shows, right? So it's like our job as parents to be hyper aware of when, brother is dominating sister or when dad is mansplaining mom, right? And it's not to say, all boys and men are cretins by any stretch. It's just the conditioning that they've grown up with, right? Girls have grown up to sort of make themselves smaller and to listen and to manage other people's feelings. And so, it's our job to sort of equalize things in the home.
The words that come to my mind is being unapologetic about intelligence. Like at the end of the day, it comes down to our intelligence, and that is not sexist. That actually is genderless, right? Intelligence is intelligence.
Intelligence is intelligence, but it wasn't until they developed intelligence tests that we found out that men are not actually smarter than women. And yet these kind of things persist. And parents are Googling, is my son gifted, twice as much as they're Googling that for their daughters. And for their daughters, they're Googling, is my daughter overweight?
Wow. Have you ever read Leonard Schleyn's Venus in the Alphabet?
I haven't.
Oh, I think he was a brain surgeon, and he wrote about his hypothesis is that We went from a matriarchal society to a patriarchal society with the advent of printing. That because the
Oh,
way the wiring in the brain went from more of a feeling society and a ritualistic society to a thinking or more science-based society, more mathematical. And it's a theory, it's a working theory, but it's a very interesting read because I think, maybe he was onto something, right? Because we are the feelers,
yeah. I
we are
mean,
the
maybe,
empaths. We are
but oh,
better.
we are the feelers and the empaths, but also we are really, that's like magnified and conditioned over and over again. And so I think there are a lot of boys and men out there that actually would be the feelers and the empaths if we allowed that, right? If we didn't make it so emasculating.
Yes, there was a documentary done, I think it's about 10 years ago I think it's called The Masks You Wear, The Masks We Wear.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen it, but somebody just brought that up yesterday. And I was like, oh, it's been on my,
Oh, I
list.
recommend it. Gavin Newsom's wife produced it, and it's about her research is about how little boys possess exactly the same kind of empathy and emotionality up until about age 10, when like their little league coaches kind of like nip it at the butt, like, oh, don't be a sissy, why are you crying?
I mean, that is my experience too. I see it in private practice with the boys and men that I treat. And a lot of men will go back to like who they were before they were 10 and how all that got shut down.
Yeah,
And you
that's
know what
fascinating.
they say the whole mothers are more nurturing. What they actually find is that that's not completely true, that it's the time you spend caregiving that changes the brain. And so if mothers are doing more of the caregiving, they're going to be more nurturing. But when it's dads that are doing the majority of the caregiving, they react in really similar ways to moms.
That's fascinating. I did not know that. That is a very interesting point. We're going to need to take a break in a second, but I wanted to touch upon the beauty culture and how this impacts our girls. And I'm going to be bold in what I'm about to say and probably not so popular, but it kind of like dumbs us down. Like I like to look good. I'm like any other average person, but I do see how the obsession with that culture acts as a buffer between who we really are and the outside world as an attempt to fit in.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're saying it's going to be unpopular because we want women to have all the choices. But, like I once said to my kid or to my daughter, a cigar is just a cigar, but a crop top and a Brazilian wax aren't as free choice as you might think. Right. And I think you're right. Like, I think we are so focused on, we teach girls that their most important asset is their appearance. And their research is, like global research shows that all girls believe their most important asset is their appearance, or the majority of girls believe that. And so they pour all of this creative energy they have into their appearance. Right.
Yes,
And
you mentioned that, the creative energy part. And I wanted to come back to that because I thought that was really interesting.
yeah, I mean, and like they're focused on each and every body part rather than how other people see them or feel about them, or on how their scent might be to other people rather than how they feel in their own bodies. But I think what you're saying is really important, because when other people objectify us and other people focus so much on our appearance, we start to see ourselves through an outsider's gaze, right? So we stop having a felt sense of ourselves, right? And you were saying like it distances us from ourselves, and
Yeah.
that's it does. And then there is all of this research that shows that self-objectification, creates all kinds of body shame, which leads to eating disorders and a whole host of mental health issues. So it's
Yeah.
not a small thing that that every advertisement that comes up at us talks about what flaws we have and how they can help us solve
Yeah.
them.
And how we'll be happier, Like that we have to solve that or fix that thing in order to be happy or achieve contentment. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we will continue the conversation with my guest today, Dr. Joanne Finkelstein. You can find her on Substack at Joanne Finkelstein. You can also find her on X at feminist_parent, on Facebook at Joanne Finkelstein, PhD author. And we're talking about her book, Sexism and Sensibility, Raising Empowered, Resilient Girls in the Modern World. Let's take that pause. We'll be right back. Harvesting happiness is rooted in science. Our work facilitates applied positive psychology practices through media and consulting. We're committed to sound ideas for better well-being, leading to increased life satisfaction and a better world for everyone. We're not into pseudoscience or quick fixes. We're focused on common sense backed by rigorous research. Healthy critical thinking is the foundation for our discussions. We encourage you to challenge preconceptions and explore ideas with a curiously discerning mind. Collaboration with our guests is united by an inclusive vision to boost resilience, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving through civilized discourse and pleasurable relational engagement for everyone. Each day, we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstances. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please seek support because good psychological health is vital to the achievement of a healthy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial and educational services that boost emotional and social intelligence. And we're back continuing the conversation with Dr. Joanne Finkelstein about bias and equality, how social justice impacts mental health. Let's get back to it. So, Joanne, let's talk a little bit about entitlement, because during the break, you brought up that word. And for some, they might cringe when you say the word entitlement. But I would love for you to explain what you mean by that, because it is appropriate in the context of this conversation.
Yeah, you're right. Being called entitled is usually pejorative, right? It's used when we think that somebody expects too much. But over and over again, I see girls in my practice who aren't entitled enough, who lack what I call a healthy sense of entitlement. And to put that into concrete terms, as early as third grade, girls begin to ask for less than boys. So one study, for example, of 4 to 9-year-olds, I think, found that when children were given the opportunity to negotiate for their favorite stickers, the older girls asked for 2 fewer than the boys, but only, and this is key, but only when negotiating with male, which reflects the same gender gap in negotiation that we see in adults.
Yeah.
So what lessons are we imparting to girls subliminally or directly that lead them to believe that they deserve less? We raise girls to believe the needs and comforts of others are more important than their own, which is what I was saying earlier. And so there's this sort of narrow range of acceptable girl voices that straitjackets girls and undermines how they're regarded, right? And actually in the book, about 5 voices that we want to encourage and nurture in our girls.
Share with us those voices.
Oh gosh, okay.
Yes, please, if you will.
There's a voice, the voice of integrity, the voice of resistance, voice of ambition, the voice of authority, and the voice of economic self-sufficiency.
Ooh, boom.
Right? And I mean, like that last one, the voice of economic self-sufficiency, we actually do not talk to boys. We do not talk to girls as much as boys about money. We don't teach them about finances.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, it gets worse. We don't give them overall, we don't give them the same amount of allowance.
Or pay, certainly. There's not pay equality.
Right. And then when they grow up, it's like that's what they've come to expect. And we really see it as like I think I say in the book, tell me without telling me that that money is a man's domain. Right. We just absent from girls' lives in so many ways. And so, we need to open bank accounts for them and we need to teach them to invest. I mean, actually, there's research showing that women are actually better investors than men, but they do not have the confidence.
Yeah. It's making me think of a book I recently read called Trust. I don't know if you've heard of that book. It's fiction, a bit historical fiction, and it talks about the brains behind the stock market crash of 1929. And I'm not going to give it away, but it involves a great story and the recognition of how we use our intelligence to be a force for bad or good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And women, we are good with money. We can be.
Oh, we really can be. I mean, we have a lot of I think part of the research shows that women have a lot of the qualities to for what makes a good investor, patience and asking others. I can't remember, so I shouldn't even cite it. But basically, they tend more to keep all of their money in savings. So they're not taught to build wealth, and men and boys are really taught to build wealth.
What? Because I think women are suppressed for risk taking.
Yes.
Right. That I think society tells us, to be safe, when healthy risk taking is how we grow. Everything, right? From wealth to ourselves.
And sort of healthy risk taking goes right alongside this healthy sense of entitlement. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm entitled to take care of my money. I don't have to rely on somebody else.
Yes.
For that.
And entitled to equal pay, equal recognition, an equal voice at the table. Things that we don't often think about, right? I think for so long, many of us have just was like, this is the way it is. Well, it's not the way it has to be. And certainly with this sea change that we're experiencing right now in the United States, there's a glimmer of hope. There's an opportunity for us to evolve.
Yeah. You mean in terms of the presidency and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I remember when Hillary Clinton was running and suddenly gender became something we should not consider, right? And people were saying, I don't vote with my vagina. Or that's, it's the idea is that it's really shallow to take gender and race into account.
Yes.
As if the last 200 years of presidents had nothing to do with in male. So representation, it really actually matters, right? It doesn't just show you that I can do that too. It's not real. It's not that it's just great for girls who actually, when they see women in public office, say that they're more likely to get involved in politics. So there is that piece, but it also, we know from both sides of the aisle, when women are involved in politics, they are more likely to focus on what men call specialty issues like childcare and equal pay, but what we consider core issues.
It's interesting. I mean, you even look to places in the Middle East. In some of these countries, there are women who are very actively involved in government in fairly conservative Muslim countries, because there is the recognition that their voices are essential in order for society to operate well.
Yeah, I think I was just looking yesterday that we rank 43rd, I believe it is, in the gender equity index. And, in such a developed country like this, how can that be?
I mean, there are theories, right? We could espouse those theories all day, right? That the homeostasis is serving a portion of society to keep us, right where they want us, kind of thing.
A patriarchal culture runs really deep and is very hard to dismantle. And I mean, I think it's patriarchal even in those other places, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, I think political power here is really, really central for men.
Then you look at countries like Pakistan, who have had a woman president decades ago. It's a little bit mind-bending, right? Because you don't think of that country as necessarily being progressive, and yet she could do the job.
Yeah.
So she was elected.
Exactly. And there's plenty of women that could have done the job in the US. And people just kept saying, we're not ready for a woman. We're not ready for a woman. And it's like, well,
what do you need to be ready for a woman?
Until you try.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when Geraldine Ferraro was on the ballot with Walter Mondale,
Mm.
right? That was like thrilling. Like everything that my generation had worked for, like it was happening. We were ready then. And then I don't know what happened.
I know. I mean, there's so much. That's the thing, right? When someone like that gets on the ballot, then there's so much backlash. So we keep clawing ourselves out of these ditches.
Yeah, well, maybe not this time. We don't know what the outcome's going to be, but you know what? Like I am rooting for equality here.
Yeah. I'm rooting for equality. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So we're nearly out of time, and I would love to have you impart a few tips for ways that we could lift one another up and support empowering one another and helping to diminish sexism in society. What are some tips that you would give us?
Well, I mean, I think allyship is so important. And I think it is going to be the thing that ultimately lifts us out of this inequality. So, fighting, right, is really culturally sanctioned and expected among girls and women, right? We call it cat fighting, which drives me bananas. And you'd think something as pervasive as sexism would draw girls and women together, but by its very nature, it does the opposite, right? A patriarchal society does its most effective work when it turns women against each other, making them afraid to be feminists and encouraging competition and distrust between them. So, and you know, girls learn early to compete for male attention, right? Which
Yeah.
allows boys to do little to earn admiration. And they're also competing for a limited number of these token spots at the top. So, to get to your question about tips, I think that we need to really keep those things in mind, that they don't want, that there is a cultural feeling that they don't want women to get along and to lift each other up. And we need to be really careful about labeling women, because right now you have, like, nobody wants to be that kind of woman, the aggressive one, the needy one, the uptight one, the slutty one, the prudish one, whatever it is, right? Like in a culture that divides human attributes as masculine or feminine and assigns those that it doesn't value to the feminine pile, any girl can be viewed as less than. So we just have to be very careful, like, you know, when we're raising our daughters, not to make sure we are not talking about poorly about other women. And I guess I think it's sort of anti-feminist, let's say, to talk about people behind their backs, to say like, oh, she wears too much makeup, or oh, why doesn't she ever put on, you know, decent clothes, or whatever it is. It teaches kids that being different is bad, right? Which makes it not only less likely that they'll be accepting of others, but they'll also come to think of their own differences as bad, right? And so I'm sort of going off on another topic, but basically we just want to not join into the cultural mandate of putting girls and women down and seeing them as less than, and noticing how we've internalized sexism ourselves.
Do you mean the childless cat women of America?
That might be what I mean.
Yeah, we shouldn't be buying into that.
Right. And I mean, we can start with putting an end to that stuff, and
that's nonsense.
The mommy wars and the breastfeeding versus formula feeding and the stay-at-home versus working mom, or the attachment parenting versus scheduled parenting. Like, we're all doing our best.
Yeah, right. And parenting does not come with a manual.
Certainly,
I mean, I have discovered that. I'm still figuring it out, you know?
So I think if we can realize that women have this extra layer of, you know, things that they're fighting against, and be less hard on them, which has, you know, been sort of instilled in us to be hard on women, that we're going to find that unity we're actually looking for and putting words to.
So we should check ourselves first, get ourselves in check as women.
Try to be as conscious as possible of our own internalized sexism.
Yeah. Ooh, well said. To learn more about the work of my guest today, Dr. Joanne Finkelstein, please go to joannefinkelstein.com, on X at FinkelJo, on Facebook at Joanne Finkelstein, PhD, author. The book we're talking about is Sexism and Sensibility, Raising Empowered, Resilient Girls in the Modern World. Joanne, thank you. I am so grateful that you came here today, shared part of your day with me.
It was such a pleasure. What a great conversation.
Yeah, really great conversation. Thanks for joining us on Harvesting Happiness today. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Dr. Joanne Finkelstein, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day, and remember to be kind to one another. Want to explore more sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the excellent team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.